This is Jesse Austin with my co-host Carla Lenk, here with another episode of Community Business Matters. Today we have a special program devoted not primarily to business, but to an organization that can help people in their dealings with business or in trying to operate a business. And because Carla has a lot of experience with this, I would like to have her introduce our guest today, and we will get into a discussion about Toastmasters International.
It's my pleasure to introduce Renee Graf, and she has Pampered Chef as her business, and Craig Carpenter, who has been a native of Wisconsin Rapids for many years, who was in business primarily in the, it was like a small mall strip mall on 8th Street for many years, and then went into the mall. So with that, I'd like to have Renee start to tell a little bit about what she does.
I am a sales director with Pampered Chef. I just celebrated my 25th anniversary this October.
Congratulations.
And, thank you. It's an interesting business to have been in for this length of time. Mm-hmm. But basically, I do cooking shows and work virtually with people and just have fun. I get to party for a living, so it's great.
That's wonderful. When you get to like X amount, do you get a pink kettle or something like that?
Pink kettle. Actually, they give us free stuff every month.
Oh, great.
So that is awesome. I could eventually, as you promote up, earn a car, but I've kind of run the business on my terms, and that's the wonderful thing about this. And I love keeping my family first, and I like to have my limits on business and save the rest.
Do you have a geographic district that you operate in?
No, I can work anywhere. As a matter of fact, virtually, I just closed a show in Seattle.
Oh, wonderful.
And so she had customers in Colorado and all over, plus in that local area. I've gone to Minneapolis quite often because I have family there, and then it's a tax write-off. I get to use my family. Well, it's all legal.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so I can pretty much go anywhere, do anything with my business.
Okay.
And with the internet now, that's what makes it fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And Craig, why don't you give us a little bit about your history, and then we'll go into Toastmasters.
Thank you, Carla. I have been in business in Wisconsin Rapids for 43 years in both commercial and retail jewelry service, repair, clock and watch repair. And up until January 1st of this year, I was located right here in the Rapids Mall. Mm-hmm. 29 years in this mall when they decided to shut it down. And I thought that was a good time to back off and slow down. So I did.
And how many people have found you?
Several.
You never die. You just dwindle away into your home and then operate there.
There are
To some
very,
extent.
very few people left anywhere in the world that do the work that I do, a true clock maker. Mm-hmm. From scratch. If I have to make a clock part, I will make it from scratch.
Wow.
And that is an art form that is dying.
Mm-hmm. With all that business going on and being in business myself to some extent, and being in the public service, I also had to be aware of what I was communicating about. Mm-hmm. Probably better when I was younger than I am now, but you both are Toastmasters. You both have been in the organization for quite some time. Would you like to talk a little bit about how you feel Toastmasters has helped you in business?
Renee?
When I first heard of Toastmasters, I thought it sounded like fun. And so I researched an organization, found one right here in Rapids, which I thought was pretty awesome. The reason I joined was not so much for the speaking end of it, but more for the leadership end, because we do have 2 different tracks that we work on. It helps in learning how to present a meeting, on how to get others involved, how to be able to say things without all those ahs and ums while I'm talking. But mostly, it's just given me a confidence that when I speak, that I can be understood rather than babble incoherently sometimes.
No matter what business you are in, communications is vital to success. We communicate from the time we wake up in the morning until the time we go to sleep at night. Mm-hmm. All day long, we are communicating. It might be something as simple as telling somebody, I would like my eggs scrambled. And it might be something as complicated as a technical presentation to a group of engineers at work, or any place in between. Those who can communicate well succeed. Those who cannot communicate well fail. Yeah. And improving communication skills is such an easy thing to do. Mm-hmm. It's like riding a bicycle. You have to put a little effort into learning how to do it. But once you learn how to ride a bicycle, you've got that skill, and you will keep practicing riding a bicycle skills as long as you live. Yeah. Especially when I see somebody 80 years old riding her bicycle down the street past my house, and I think, gee, that looks like fun. I'm glad I'm not doing it.
Well, it's not me. I'm not riding past your house.
Very seldom do you stop and think that there are three things that have to happen for good communications. First, you have to have the transmission of some information. I'm talking to you now, transmitting information about my ideas. There has to be the reception of the information. You're sitting here listening to me, and there has to be the understanding of that information. We're talking Americanized English, and you hopefully are understanding what I'm saying. Most people don't ever stop to think how important the listening part of communications is.
Absolutely true.
Toastmasters has been around since 1924. You don't stick around that many years in this world if you do not provide that which you promise. Mm-hmm. Toastmasters is one of the strongest methods of learning good communications. In Wisconsin Rapids, our Toastmasters Club meets twice a month, the second and fourth Thursdays of each month, Thursdays of each month, and we meet at the Riverview Hospital. So you have 2 chances for 1 hour each month to work on your communication skills, your ability to get your ideas across.
So how are those meetings set up? What's the format for each one of those meetings that you're attending?
A basic format for our meeting is very simple. We have a person called the Toastmaster who opens and runs the meeting. Somebody will come up, introduce a word of the day. We get into a part of our meeting that is absolutely wonderful called table topics.
Yes.
It is totally unrehearsed, extemporaneous speech. The topic master will ask a question. Gee, the snow just fell last Saturday. What do you like about winter, Jesse? Jesse has no idea he's going to be called on and no idea what the question is going to be. He stands up and tries to answer that question in 1 to 2 minutes and do it fluently, eloquently. Get rid of the ahs, the ums, the ers, the pauses, and the stutters, and give a good answer. Extemporaneous speaking, especially in the business world, is critical to success.
And standing up and saying nothing and sitting down is not acceptable.
No.
For that question.
So my silence was noted.
We follow table topics with up to 3 prepared speeches.
Well, we have the word too.
I did say we introduced, didn't I say we introduced a word?
Yep.
Oh, we did, a word master.
Yeah.
Then the table topics, we go into prepared speeches. You can give all the speeches in the world that you want, but if you don't have someone there listening and giving you a critique of what you've done, you don't improve. So we have evaluations of our speakers. Mm-hmm. And it's very, very interesting method that the Toastmasters have developed for their critiques. We call it the ham sandwich method. Mm-hmm. We take that first piece of bread, which is, I like the way you opened the speech. It's a positive. The ham is what can you do to improve? That's the meat of the critique. And we close with a positive. That's the second slice of bread, the sandwich method. When you're done and you've given a speech and you've been evaluated, you feel, I can do that. I'm going home and work on that. I'm going to get that next speech ready and look forward to it.
Yep.
That's an incredible feeling because as everybody's seated here and out in the TV audience probably know, public speaking is considered at the top or near the top of everybody's list of things they fear the most. So when you first became a part of Toastmasters, what was your thinking about public speaking?
Well, I suffered from the last two parts of our meeting, the roles that we have. One is a timer, and they actually time, are you in between 1 and 2 minutes? Are the evaluations between 1 and 2 minutes? If you say your speech is 4 to 6 minutes, did you stay in that time limit? And the other one that we have is, we used to call it just the Wizard of Oz. That's somebody who counts all your ahs, your ums, your ands, all those fun things. And then we also have a grammarian. We've kind of combined those two to the grandma. The grammarian and ah counter together. They usually both work together. But I suffered from the, when you're talking and you're nervous and you don't know where you're.
That's 5 now.
Yes, and we have somebody that counts everybody's ahs and ums. The reason for that is most of the time we're not conscious of those. But I'll tell you, start listening for them, and when you watch a program like this or listen to a radio show or something, you're starting to count. Sometimes even when you're in church and you hear your pastor, you start counting all those ahs and ums, and you just become more conscious of it in yourself and in others. So that was one of the biggest things that I could improve upon when I started.
Okay. Now, how about you? Did you have any shortcomings that you felt needed to be improved when you first joined the organization?
All kinds of them. All kinds of them. Just the things, the filler words. More importantly, learning how to listen. And in my business, where I'm talking to a customer across the counter who wants his clock repaired or a watch repaired, it's critical that I listen and understand what it is you're asking me to do. Learn to listen to understand. Don't listen to respond.
Be quick to listen and slow to speak.
Yep.
Good words.
Yep.
Good words.
The leadership aspect of Toastmasters is also interesting. And a while back, Craig and I were talking about a new kind of evaluation that was coming in, a new way of dealing with Toastmasters. We went from different books, manuals like these, to electronic pathfinders. And I was trying to figure out my path in amongst those. So we had to pick whether we wanted to learn how to speak well or we wanted to find out to lead. And like 5 out of the 6 things were dealing with leadership. And I said I didn't want to be a leader. I wanted to be a follower. I've done that. Bought the T-shirt on leadership, and I wasn't going to do that anymore. And Craig said, "Oh no, you can't do that. You gotta." And I said, "Yes, I can." So my idea when I joined Toastmasters, and I'm a Toastmaster also, that I wanted to begin to fine-tune my speech, and I needed it because I had not done a lot of public speaking for 10, 15 years before I joined again. When I was working at the university, it was not unknown for someone to pop up in an audience and say, "Well, Carla, what do you feel about this?" And then I'd have to, off the top of my head, come up with an answer, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. And I was used to that. I spoke to audiences of 500, and I spoke to audiences of 1, the 1 being mostly my dean, who was wondering why I was doing this.
Yeah.
And I said, "Don't you remember I asked you if I could do this?" "Oh, is that what this is?" He didn't listen. So yes, I actually did find that bringing some of these concepts back to me was very helpful. And listening is definitely one, because sometimes as you get older, you tune things out. Renee, you don't have to worry about that, or just so you don't have to. You and I probably We tune things, oh, I heard you say that before. I'll just pick up in a year or two and you'll be saying the same thing. But I felt that it was very good to fine-tune my speech patterns, my goals of what I wish to do within that speech, focusing more upon the introduction, body, conclusion types.
Okay, the content. Okay.
And making sure you have an opening and a closing and that the middle connects the two.
Right.
I remember doing a speech that I started by giving the title of my speech and my opener, and then I talked about how, and then I was on an elevator today and it fell, and then this happened and that happened, and I just went on and on till these guys were looking at me like, and I said, just stop it. Just get to the point, would you? And that was the whole speech. The project was get to the point. And that's another thing about the table topics is we all know that person that we ask them a question and they don't know how to stop talking. And so the table topics will help with that.
Yes. Although some of those speeches are very interesting.
They are. Oh, they are. But I'm talking more in a conversation. It teaches you, maybe I should just be quiet for a little while and let the other person talk, or ask something about them and not drone on and on.
My wife is, among other people, has said that I sometimes have a tendency, it's as if I'm not secure enough in the initial answer that I gave. I have to pile on. So that's a good lesson that I can learn from this.
Yes.
So you've talked about these interesting experiences. For example, that group that you did in Seattle, Washington, and that sort of thing. How do you directly apply what you learned in Toastmasters to situations like that?
Well, working virtually is a lot like being in person. The problem you really have to watch is what you say online. I might say, I'm really happy, and they're in a grumpy mood, and when they read it, I sound like I'm being a mean person. So I use this as an opportunity to really look over and read what I'm posting, making sure that I'm not going to offend somebody by one of my favorite things is I say I'm a stoner. I love Pampered Chef stoneware. Not everybody gets that joke. So I always have to preface that, but there have been people that have gotten upset because I sound like I'm promoting other things. I'm not. It's just a word, So just trying to make sure that you're communicating correctly in words so that they are not misunderstood, hopefully.
It sounds as if it adds to your conviction, or at least the expression of conviction when you're talking, that you're not saying all the time and not repeating yourself or going too long. Is that a good aspect of it also?
I think so.
Yes, absolutely. When you learn to speak concisely and correctly, your words carry far more weight than someone who is standing there searching for the terms, filling it with ahs, ums, ers as they're searching for the words. You sit in a business meeting and somebody is calling on Bob, how's it coming on the budget? Bob stands up and says, well, we're pretty close to getting it together, and
everybody's thinking, oh, Bob is going to go down.
we should be done with it in about 3 weeks. Or they call on Bob, and Bob, how is it coming on the budget project? He stands up, it's coming very well. Everything is coming in, we'll be done in 2 weeks. And sits down. Who carries the weight?
Indeed, indeed.
That's right. And Craig has often said one of my favorite lines that a lot of people think, I don't need Toastmasters. I'm not going to get up and speak in front of one or even hundreds of people. But Craig has often said most of the time your most important speech is to an audience of one. Whether you're in a job interview or speaking to a potential future wife, that first date can be a big impression.
I wouldn't know anything about that. Jesse probably and Craig does. But.
Yeah. So,
No, I think that's true, that you have to, and you can see the expressions on other people's faces if they are listening to you, if they're understanding what you're saying.
Right.
When you're teaching, and which I've done in my past, and you're teaching and you're looking around the class, they don't think that you can see them for some reason. It's like a veil between the seats and your front of the room, and they're not taking notes, you know, and you can see that, or they're looking out into the distance and watching the butterfly out the window. And I can see that, and I said, I'm losing them. What am I going to do?
and you were mentioning the leadership aspect of it also, how it contributes to that, having those powers of persuasion at your disposal.
Have you ever noticed when you're in a group of people, the PTA, they need to raise money for the playground? Well, let's ask Mary to chair that committee. She always speaks so well. She knows how to say that and get the things done. Let's ask Mary. It's always the best communicator that gets chosen for the leadership positions.
Mm-hmm.
Or the person who misses the meeting.
That's also true.
Oh, yeah, I remember those meetings.
to make it real.
The leadership is something that comes naturally in Toastmasters. It's not as if you're taking a separate course strictly in leadership. It happens to come along with better communications. And in our new program called Pathways, where we now have our manuals online as we go through our pathways, of which there are 10. Every one of the 10 has a section in there that is devoted to improving leadership skills. It comes with the territory. It's painless. It's actually kind of fun. It's learning without realizing you're even doing the job.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
There's also a time limit on these speeches. So from 4 to 6 is the first one, which is not very much at all. I had a daughter who was in speech in college for, I think it was one of the general core classes, and she had to introduce herself, or she had to do a 2-minute speech. That was it.
2 minutes.
2-minute speech. And she was whining on the phone. I can't do this. I don't know. I'm so nervous. I have to get up and before all these people and talk for 2 minutes. I said, 2 minutes? I introduced myself and it's 3. You know, what are you talking about? 2 minutes. You know, talking about the weather that day is 2 minutes. Just put it into perspective.
And how is she going to introduce herself in an interview? Because you have to do that. What's your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And you hit it on the head when you talked about being at a funeral. If this was a funeral here and there was 100 people attending, 101 with the deceased, 90 of them would prefer to be in the casket than to have to do the eulogy. 9 out of 10 people fear public speaking over death.
Wow.
And again, it's not public speaking. It's learning how to communicate, learning how to talk to your neighbor.
And analyzing the audience as you go into whom you're speaking to, what's their age, what's their background.
Yeah, reading your audience is a good one, because I've have a few friends that have been blind their whole lives, and some that have lost their sight. The people that are born without their sight are a little bit more in tune, but people that lose their sight later in time, they lose those visual cues of when a person is done with a conversation, and it can be very difficult to get out. So even somebody in that state of life is a perfect candidate to be in Toastmasters, because they almost have to relearn how to communicate.
Okay.
One of the things that doesn't get mentioned enough as far as the Toastmasters organization, as far as I'm concerned, is the fellowships that are developed within the organization. We're all there for the same thing. We're all there to improve our communication skills, become better listeners, better speakers, better evaluators. But in so doing, we also become very good friends.
Yes.
And in so doing, Toastmasters is said to be the fastest, easiest way to develop self-confidence that there is. You get in and give 3-4 speeches, and it's amazing to watch a new member come in and see how much they change in the progress of 3 or 4 speeches amongst friends, getting used to getting up in front of a group and speaking to the point that they actually enjoy doing so. And once you learn to do that in the Toastmasters setting, it doesn't make any difference if you're speaking to that audience of 1, the human relations manager across the desk, or if you're speaking to an audience of 4,000, or anywhere in between. It actually becomes enjoyable to speak to people.
Wow,
It does.
great testimony.
And I would have to say the same thing. Anybody that is looking to be an entrepreneur, especially, you have to get clients, you have to talk with people, you're trying to sell your goods, if you're opening a retail business, you have vendors you have to talk to, you have to convey, I want a case of this, knowing that a case is this many, not a case is 5 boxes of what you want. Little details and specifics, you probably will still make those mistakes. But it just gives you the confidence. And there's actually one of our members that received a promotion at his job because he had Toastmasters on his resume.
Wow.
Because somebody that is out to improve themselves is going to make a better fit for promotions in a company. Just getting out of college, going into the job force, starting your own business, everything requires communication. And you get that confidence behind you, the rest will go.
Wow. Thank you both for those testaments to the value of Toastmasters. And if someone in our viewing area wanted to join your particular group, how would they do that?
Fastest way would be to do a Google search for Wisconsin Rapids area Toastmasters.
Okay.
Or come to one of the meetings. It's the second and fourth
Fourth Thursday.
Thursday of the month,
6:30.
6:30. We end at 7:30. Right there, 7:30, everybody's out the door.
At Riverview Hospital. Come in the main revolving door and follow the signs.
Okay. All right.
And
It's
come
downstairs.
early. Yeah, come a couple minutes early and we can answer questions. Gavel comes down for the meeting at 6:30. So if you're there at 6:15, we can shake your hand, answer any questions, give you a nice packet with a magazine and a few other fun things in there, information.
Okay. Well, Craig Carpenter and Renee Graf, thank you both so much for joining us here on this episode of Community Business Matters. I hope that our audience will take advantage of all these benefits that they can gain from Toastmasters International. And Carla, would you have any wrap-up thoughts on this?
No, I think that you've said it all. I also encourage everybody to come to the meeting at least once.
Yeah.
It's a good time for an hour to sit back and watch other people squirm if they've never been up there before.
Yes.
But also, it will give you some instruction on what to do when giving a speech. You'll learn by osmosis to some extent, and you will be able to hopefully sign up and come back.
Yes.
Well, Craig and Renee, once again, thank you so very much for joining us and imparting all this information. So on behalf of Carla Lenk and myself, Jesse Austin, that's another episode of Community Business Matters. Look forward to seeing you again next month. Take care.